Hello, my dear friends and my dear students. In Springs, for unit number 4, we have got everything I need to know I learnt in the forest, and this unit is written by Vandana Shiva, who was born in the year 1952. Vandana Shiva is an ecologist and she is an editor for Yes Magazine and who wrote the essay called What Would Nature Do? Let's see what did she write in that essay. How did she speak about biodiversity and biodiversity based living economies? She is an internationally renowned activist for biodiversity and against corporate globalization and author for Stolen Harvest, the hijacking of the global food supply, Earth Democracy, Justice, Sustainability and Peace. Likewise, she has written so many works. In this essay, Vandana Shiva first tells us how she learnt about environmentalism from the uneducated women of Garhwal, Himalaya. While the government officials and men were cutting down trees for logs, and the women showed them that the trees and the forests were living things and we need to live with them. Later, Vandana learnt all the major ideals of a good life from the forests. They are diversity of life forms and the need to accept diversity as the principle of life. Earth is our mother and not just raw material to be exploited. We need to live in harmony with nature. Earth democracy, respecting the freedom of all species of life to evolve and live together. The Indian tradition to ecology, as recognized by Tagore, the culture of the forest is the true Indian culture. Thus, Vandana Shiva says that the forests teach us the values of diversity, freedom, and coexistence. So, these key elements can be seen in this essay. Let's see what has she told about Chipko movement and how did that Chipko action take place in the Himalayan region. We have heard about Chipko. It is a movement which has been started by Sundarlal Bahuguna, and the women played a vital role in the Chipko movement because since they have to provide the basic needs to the family, that's why they have to go for longer distances to fetch water. These are the elements which were displayed by her in the unit. So her ecological journey started in the forests of the Himalaya. My father was a forest conservator and my mother became a farmer after fleeing the tragic partition of India and Pakistan. She is the woman who could able to sustain herself in the life, and even though her husband has got a good profession as well, she sticks to the work of tilling the land and she produces and she sustains herself on her own. It is from the Himalayan forests and ecosystems that I learned most of what I know about ecology. So she says that she has been trained by the ecosystem, ecology. The songs and poems our mother composed for were about trees, forests, and India's forest civilizations. So her mother is not only a farmer, but she also was a good writer as well. She who has written so many poems and she who has written so many songs, they celebrate Indian forest civilization. So further she tells what is Chipko movement here. My involvement in the contemporary ecology movement began with Chipko. Here she tells that Chipko means a non-violent response to the large-scale deforestation that was taking place in the Himalayan region. In the 1970s, peasant women from my region in the Garhwal, Himalaya had come out in defense of the forests. Chipko is such a movement where most of the women went towards the trees and with the family members they have hugged almost all the trees which were there in the forests just to protect them. When the tree cutters will come, they will say that before they are going to cut down the trees, they have to kill them, and then they can do their work. Logging had led to landslides and floods and scarcity of water, fodder, and fuel. So, because the forest has disappeared, that's why there were so many scarcities which could be seen. Number one, the scarcity of water. Number two, fodder and fuel for hearthburn. Since women provide these basic needs, the scarcity meant longer walks for collecting the water and firewood and a heavier burden. So this has become a laborious burden on the women. That's why they thought that they have to protect at any cost the forests so that to have springs and streams in their lives, which was explained in the next paragraph. Women knew that the real value of forests was not the timber from a dead tree, but the springs and streams. To sustain the further generations and to have life in the present day at any cost, they have to protect the springs and streams. To see the springs and streams in the next generation, at any cost, they have to protect greenery, that is the forest. When they are going to protect the forests, they may have springs and streams. In a season, we are going to see that one spring season will be there. Likewise, they expect number of such seasons in their lives and the further generation. They are going to protect it. The women declared that they would hug the trees and the loggers would have to kill them before killing the trees. That's how they have saved thousands together trees in the forest of Himalaya. Even they sang a song which is of folk, where they depict that the trees are like human beings. Human beings also have to lead their lives and they have to protect the lives of the trees. In 1973, I had gone to visit my favorite forests and swim in my favorite stream before leaving for Canada to do my PhD. So anyway, she had an intention to complete her PhD. So before she will go to Canada, she wanted to spend time in two favorite places, and the two favorite places were, first one, she wants to spend time in forest which had disappeared, and she wants to swim in the stream which also had dried up. But the forests were gone and the stream was reduced to a trickle. That's how she had involved herself in Chipko movement voluntarily. I decided to become a voluntary for the Chipko movement, and I spent every vacation doing padayatras, walking pilgrimages, documenting the deforestation and the work of forest activists and spreading the message of Chipko. So these are the key things which should be known about Vandana Shiva. So Vandana Shiva, during her vacation, she will undertake padayatras to the pilgrim centers, and there she speaks about the statistics of deforestation to the people. There she tells about the effects of deforestation, and she spreads the messages of Chipko movement with the help of forest activists. One of the dramatic Chipko actions took place in the Himalayan village of Adwani in the year 1977. When a village woman named Bachni Devi, she led resistance against her own husband, and she says that it's not the way to earn the living. All the women have gathered and they went towards the forester. They took the lighted lanterns during the day light, and the forester asked them. Then they said that we have come over here to teach forestry. Look at the reactions of the forest official. What did he say? You foolish women, how can you protect tree felling by those who know the value of the forest? According to the forester, the real value of the forest as follows. Do you know what forests bear? They produce profit and resale and timber. When the forester has said that forests have got different uses, they reveal the original use of the forest by singing a folk song. The women sang back in chorus, "What do the forests bear? Soil, water, and pure air. Soil, water, and pure air. Sustain the earth and all she bears." Look at the lines which were said by the illiterate women. Soil is protected by the forest. It will provide us pure air. Not only that, water will be provided by the forest. It sustains, it bears, it tolerates the whole universe. This is how they have explained in the folk song. Up to here we have seen the first part, and in the second part we will see beyond monocultures, which is called as a scientific measure which has been taken by Vandana Shiva as an answer for Chipko movement. From Chipko, I learned about biodiversity and biodiversity based living economies. The protection of both has become my life's mission. Her life's two missions, biodiversity and biodiversity based living economies, the protection of both has become her life's mission. This is what she projects there. This is what her aim was. And she continuously works for the two major ideals of her. As I described in my book, Monocultures of the Mind, the failure to understand biodiversity and its many functions is at the root of the improvement of nature and culture. She says that the basics like biodiversity, that is ecology, ecosystem, meanwhile the preservance of these economic activities where they are going to look at the interests of other species is also interest for us and important for us, and to protect these two have become the life's mission. She has described in the book called The Monocultures of the Mind. The lessons I learned about diversity in the Himalayan forests, I transferred to the protection of biodiversity on our farms. I started saving seeds from farmers' fields and then realized we need a farm for demonstration and training. Thus, she had established Navadhanya farm in the year 1994. So in the year 1994, she had established Navadhanya farm just because she had the interest to create awareness in people that it's not only to lead a person's life by cutting down the trees, but the people can also lead their lives by growing and protecting the interests of other species as well. She had given or she has given the trainings and demonstrations in the farms. She goes from farmers' fields to farmers' fields, and there she collects the seeds which were grown by the farmers. Not only she saved them, but she had decided to give the same lifestyle to the other people who were cutting down the trees earlier for their livelihood. Let's see. She has started the Don Valley, in the Don Valley, the Navadhanya farm, and which is located in the lower elevation of Himalayan region of Uttarakhand province. Do you know what is the result of establishing that Navadhanya farm? We conserve and grow 630 varieties of rice and 150 varieties of wheat, and hundreds of other species were preserved and protected by her. See, nearly 630 varieties of rice crop were grown by her, and she had given the demonstrations. 150 varieties of wheat crop were grown by her. Apart from this, this is the answer which has been provided by her for the Chipko movement. And it contains two benefits for the society. The first benefit is that with the help of organic farming and using the natural manure, they can grow more food crop in the field. Apart from that, the food crops contains nutrients per acre. So it is the answer for nutrition crisis, and meanwhile food crisis or food problem in the country. That's how she has become the answer for the lives of people. Navadhanya, the movement for biodiversity conservation and organic farming that I started in 1987 is spreading. In the year 1987, she had started the work on Navadhanya farm, but the message about Navadhanya farm only spreads during 1994. See, for good work, we need longer times to await. That's what we can see in the work and the patience of Vandana Shiva. So far, we have worked with farmers to set up more than 100 community seed banks across India. We have saved more than 3,000 varieties of rice crop. We also help farmers make a special type of agricultural method, that is organic manure could be used, avoiding the chemical based agriculture, that is monocultures to biodiverse ecological system nourished by the sun and the soil. The chemicals were avoided by them in the farms so that they may have nutrients per acre and more food crop can be grown. Biodiversity has been my teacher of abundance and freedom and of cooperation and mutual giving. She accepts that biodiversity means living organisms have taught her so many lessons, and the lessons are of positivity. Let's see, abundance of freedom can be found, and of cooperation, meanwhile, mutual giving. In the next phase, we will see here the rights of earth on the global stage. So, what is that? The rights of earth on the global stage. Here, under this head, we will see what rights do human beings have towards earth. As a part of the earth, what rights have been there for them and how are they behaving here. As a part of earth, human beings have to retain the interests of earth, whereas now people and their behavior have become worst and too worst. Do you know? The reason is their selfishness. When nature is a teacher, we co-create with her, we recognize her agency and her rights. First, we must admit and accept that nature is our teacher. When we accept the nature is our teacher, then only we can know that what may be her agencies and what could be the interests of nature. So what can be known? Her agencies and the interests can be known of nature. Further, she says here, that is why it is significant that Ecuador has recognized the rights of nature in its constitution. In April 2011, the United Nations General Assembly, inspired by the Constitution of Ecuador and the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Mother Earth, initiated by Bolivia, organized a conference on harmony with nature as a part of Earth Day celebrations. So, as a part of Earth Day celebrations, they have organized a conference, and in that conference, the outcome was that human beings' behavior on nature have become or has become too worse. This has to be rectified. Do you know the reason for their such worst behavior? Because they thought that they are separate from nature. Further, they explain here. The UN Secretary General report, Harmony with Nature, issued in conjunction with the conference, elaborates on the importance of reconnecting with nature. Human beings are detached from nature. That detachment has to become attached so that they can know the importance of nature and creatures as well. They have given the report. Ultimately, environmentally destructive behavior is the result of a failure to recognize that human beings are an inseparable part of nature and that we cannot damage it without damaging severely ourselves. So this is what the report speaks. If we go on damaging the interests of nature, in turn our interests will be damaged. Not only our interests, but other species interests will also be damaged. So this has to be kept in one's mind. So people feel to do harm on the earth just because of this reason, which has been described by Cormac Cullinan. Separatism is indeed at the root of disharmony with nature and violence against nature and people. People thought that they are separate, that's why we feel that the violence is there and people will react anti towards nature. Cormac Cullinan, an environmentalist, South African environmentalist, points out that apartheid means separateness. The world joined the anti-apartheid movement to end the violent separation of people on the basis of color. When there will be threat for human beings, they fought against the injustice and they got the success. In the same way, when the other species in the universe will be under the threat, human beings have to look at them and they must feel that they are the part and parcel of nature. Then only this type of action can be taken towards nature and nature's interests. See, when trouble will come to the human beings, they will unite. But when there will be threat for the animals and the kingdom of animals under threat, human beings also have to react. Today, we need to overcome the wider and deeper apartheid and eco-apartheid based on the illusion of separateness of humans from nature in our minds and lives. If we may not look at the nature as one and as we are the part and parcel, in turn nature will one day teach us a great lesson. Before that, we should keep the interests of other species as well, and we should move on harmoniously with the nature and nature's interest. In the next part, we will see the dead earth worldview. Thank you. The dead earth worldview. This section can be seen with a great note that how the people and their attitudes towards earth had made the earth a dead matter and a manipulable matter. Let's see, the war against the earth began with this idea of separateness. Its contemporary seeds were sown when the living earth was transformed into dead matter to facilitate the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is the base for the separateness. The people have become too greedy, and with their greed, they went on spoiling the interests of nature. We say that Earth Day was celebrated from 2011. On every 23rd of April, we will see that Earth Day is celebrated. But the separateness and the image of separateness may not disappear from us. If it may not go away from us, it is impossible, and we will make this earth a dead matter. Monocultures replaced diversity. Raw materials and dead matter replaced a vibrant earth. So monocultures replaced diversity in the sense growing different types of crops of the same kind has been replaced by the diverse purposes of life. The earth has been used for industry and industrial intentions. That's why we can see the present situation has become too worst for the nature. The people have made it as an empty land, the land ready for occupation regardless of presence of indigenous people, replaced Mother Earth. The interests have become very cruel. That's why the mother has become dead here. Let's see how the Mother Earth has become dead. This philosophy goes back to Francis Bacon, called the father of modern science. The father of modern science now tells here. He narrates there, Science and the inventions that result do not merely extract a gentle guidance over nature's course. They have the power to conquer and subdue her, to shake her to her foundations. Man with their intentions, man with their inventions have spoiled the interests of nature. Science and scientific inventions have to improve the capabilities of earth, but instead it went on spoiling the interests of earth mother. It has given the position for the earth that man had made this earth a vibrant earth instead of a cool and calm which can sustain the spaces on the earth. This is what the father of modern science tells. As philosopher and historian, Caroline Marchant points out this shift of perspective from nature as a living, nurturing mother to inert, dead, and manipulable matter. A philosopher and a historian, Caroline Marchant, there he points out that the perspective of nature as a living and nurturing mother, it had made by the people and their interests a dead and manipulable matter, was well suited to the activities that would lead to capitalism. Because human beings didn't care about the other species and their interests, they just expect profit from their investment, and that's why they have become capitalistic in their motive, and they neglect the interests of even the laborers, including the other species as well. The domination images created by Bacon and other leaders of the scientific revolution replaced those of nurturing earth, removing a cultural constraint on the exploitation of nature. One does not really slay a mother, dig into her entrails for gold, or mutilate her body, Marchant wrote. There is one more writer called Marchant. He says that no person in the world will kill the mother and just for their benefits. But human beings, they just entrailed, they dug her and they made her dead and they mutilate her body. They have scattered her body. So cruel the people have become and their interests have become. That's why the earth which was alive have become or has become dead. What will nature teach here? What should we learn from nature? What nature teaches? Today, at a time of multiple crises intensified by globalization, we need to move away from the paradigm of nature as dead matter. We need to move to an ecological paradigm, and for this, the best teacher is nature herself. So, at last, to whom should we surrender? We should surrender ourselves to the nature so that to know the interests of nature, then only nature teaches bounty of things to us. This is what she says in her essay. The Earth University teaches Earth democracy. Earth democracy is the freedom for all species to evolve within the web of life. As a part of Earth, the human being's work will be little bit more, and the freedom and the responsibility of humans as members of the Earth family to recognize, protect, and respect the rights of other species. This is an extra work for human beings because they are the human beings. They should protect and they should recognize and they should respect the rights of other species. Earth democracy is a shift from anthropocentrism to ecocentrism. Anthropocentrism means where only the interests of human beings are kept in the mind. Ecocentrism means where all the other species' interests are also kept in the mind, including human beings. This is the need of the hour. What is the need of the hour? Providing a shift from anthropocentrism to ecocentrism. And since we all depend on the earth, earth democracy translates into human rights to food and water, to freedom from hunger and thirst. Not only human beings have to quench their thirst and satisfy their needs, All the creatures have got the rights to do so. This has to be observed seriously by people, and they must make the animals to be away from the hunger and thirst. This is also the responsibility of human beings. We can learn these things when we accept nature as our teacher. This is what she speaks in her essay. That is, what would nature do? Apart from this, because the Earth University is located at Navadhanya, a biodiversity farm, participants learn to work with living seeds, living soil, and the web of life. Participants include farmers, school children, and people from across the world. The three various types of interested pupils can be seen there in Navadhanya farm, and they are the farmers, the school children, and people who are interested from across the world have come over to Navadhanya farm, and they have learnt how to grow and how to lead our lives by growing the crops and sustaining the interests of other species. There are two important courses which were offered at Navadhanya farm, and the two important courses are as follows: the A to Z of organic farming and agroecology, and Gandhi and globalization. So these are the two important courses which were offered at Navadhanya farm. At last, we will come to the last part of this unit, where we will see that how has she got inspiration from the great poet, that is none other than Rabindranath Tagore. We will see here the poetry of the forest. So poetry of the forest means, what will the forest tell us? What will the forests tell us? The poetry of the forest. Here, Rabindranath Tagore has established Shantiniketan as a school of learning. Later, in the year 1921, it has become a university. Rabindranath Tagore is India's national poet and a Nobel Prize laureate. And today, just as in Tagore's time, we need to turn to nature and the forest, the lessons in freedom, or for lessons in freedom. If we have to get knowledge about nature, we have to turn our interests towards forest. There we can learn plenty of things. Tagore wrote in his essay called Tapovan. Tapovan means forest of purity. Indian civilization has been distinctive in locating its source of regeneration, material and intellectual, in the forest, not the city. So if we have to learn what is Indian civilization, we can see that Indian civilization in the forest, not in the cities of our country. That's why major ideals have been learned by Tagore's school, and this was the inspiration for Vandana Shiva to start Navadhanya farm, and she had established. Meanwhile, most of the people have got inspiration from it. The peace of the forest has helped the intellectual evolution of man. We can see evolution only in peace, and that peace can be found in forest. This is what Rabindranath Tagore says in Tapovan. The culture that has arisen from the forest has been influenced by the diverse purposes of renewal of life, which are always at play in the forest, varying from species to species. Rabindranath Tagore says that in the forest we can see there were different creatures, and all the creatures will have a kind of tough competition between themselves, yet they grow in silence, they evolve in silence. This is the greatest lesson which one should learn from the forests. Further, he says here, the unifying principle of life in diversity, of democratic pluralism, thus becomes the principle of Indian civilization. The multi-purposes of forest have to be understood here. The forest may not provide only shelter to the human beings and their interests, the forests are going to provide interests even to the other creatures as well, alike like that of human beings. It has to be well known to people. This will be known when he learns in forest. That is the urge of Tagore in his essay. It is this unity in diversity that is the basis of both ecological sustainability and democracy. Democracy means freedom of the people, freedom for the people, by the people and of the people. And earth democracy means it is the freedom for all the species, it is the freedom by the people, in the same way by the creatures and for the creatures. That's what we have to know here. In Tagore's writing, the forest was not just the source of knowledge and freedom, it is the source of beauty and joy, of art and aesthetics, of harmony and perfection. This sentence is very important here. It symbolized the universe. So we can learn many things and we can even see the whole world in forest. That is the universe. It symbolizes the universe. It means forests or forest will symbolize universe. All knowledge will be in the forest. This will be known to us when we accept nature as a teacher and we try to learn from nature the interests of forest and nature. The forest was the forest was not just the source of knowledge and freedom. It was the source of beauty and joy, of art and aesthetics, of harmony and perfection. If we have to learn harmony, the concept of harmony, that also can be learned there. If we have to know what is perfection, that perfection can also be seen in forest. Beauty can be seen and joy can be found. With this, wonderful things, beautiful side of life can be seen in forest. The forest teaches us union and compassion. There is happiness in living together with the other creatures. In the same way, one can find joy not when they are lonely, they will find the joy only when they are united. This also can be the lesson which could be learned from the forest. The last and final section of this unity is very important because here we will know the philosophical element which was taught by Rabindranath Tagore. The forest also teaches us enoughness. How to lead a satisfied life can be shown by the forest. Enoughness in the sense how to lead a satisfied life. Like forest, even though there will be a lot of evolutions which could be seen in forest. As a principle of equity, how to enjoy the gifts of nature without exploitation and accumulation. When the people will leave two important elements, then they are going to have prosperity in their life. The two important things are they should feel that they should not exploit the things, and second, they should not accumulate the things which were seen by them. Only this is the formula which was given by Rabindranath Tagore in his essay. Tagore quotes from the ancient texts written in the forest. Know all that moves in this moving world as enveloped by God, and find enjoyment through renunciation. So renunciation here refers to not to climb the things which were seen by you. Just we have to see the things which are moving around us. Just we should know them, but we should not have the image of occupying that or climbing them. No species in a forest appropriates the share of another species. Every species sustains itself in cooperation with others. Nobody's share in the nature was taken away by any other creatures. In the same way, human beings should not take the portions which were meant for other creatures, and he must know his limit. He must look after the welfare of all the creatures, and he should lead his life together harmoniously in the system so that to retain the interests of nature. The end of consumerism and accumulation is the beginning of the joy of living. When two things were left by the people, then only they can have the joy of life. The two things are consumerism, buying the things unnecessarily. Second, accumulation. Accumulation means collecting the things even though they may not have of any great importance at all. The conflict between greed and compassion, conquest and cooperation, violence and harmony that Tagore wrote about continues today. In the nature, we will see that good and bad will be in the clash. At last, good or bad will get the victory. Finally, we know that good is going to get the victory, and greed is bad thing, compassion is the good thing, conquest is the bad thing, and cooperation is the good thing. Violence and harmony, violence is the bad, and harmony is good. Most of the people who will lead their lives on this earth will move away from the world just in these two clashes. But the forest will teach us a superb way which is beyond this. The people who will obtain that, they could lead a happy life and a perfect life. And it is the forest that can show us the way beyond this conflict. What is the important thing which should be understood here? We should not lead our lives. We should not lead our lives just within the clash of good and bad. We should move above that, and this way will be shown by the forest. Up to here, we have seen Vandana Shiva's experience in ecology and her life's great missions, biodiversity and biodiversity based living economies, the protection of both, which has become her life's mission. She who has got the inspiration from the great writer called Rabindranath Tagore, and her experience were in detail described now. Thank you very much.